Hey ladies, something I noticed is male-centered women see friendships as resources, not as genuine connections. And this is going to be a cautionary tale slash beware video because I think a lot of us get caught up in friendships that are one-sided, and we think, because they come to us with all their problems, because we're their confidant, because we're their shoulders to cry on, that means that they actually value us. But I would beg to differ. These people view us as resources. They view us as people to use. They view us as outlets to plug into. It can be very painful when you come to this realization, but it's important that you do and you're honest with yourself nonetheless. So the reason why I use the word resources is because that is literally how it feels when you're dealing with male-centered women who are like this. A lot of times these women will, overextend themselves for bad people in their life, like the abusive man that's putting their hands on them, their family that doesn't give a crap about them, their coworkers that talk badly about them behind their back. They'll stick their neck out. They'll go the extra mile. They'll spend money on these people. They will value the connections or the illusion of connections that they have to these people, but then mistreat and take advantage of the friendships that are genuinely real with people who genuinely care for them. That toxic friend of yours knows that you're going to always answer the phone and you're going to always be there to pick her up when she falls. You're going to sit there on the phone for hours and hours and talk about her ancient baby daddy. And she knows that you're going to be there because you genuinely care about her. And she knows that. And she knows that people who genuinely care about her are resources, not friends. I feel like they value people who treat them like crap because low-key they feel like they're crap. So they feel like, people who treat them badly resemble how they view and treat themselves. So it's hard for them to be genuine and reciprocal with someone who's treating them really well. I also believe they view their friends as resources because they will do things like dump their children on their friends. They will use their friends for money. Like they'll put themselves in messed up situations. Let's just say, I don't know, they do something where they lose all their money because they're gambling or they're taking really bad risks or they're giving it away to someone who's toxic in their life. And then they know because you care about them, because you love them, you're going to be there to clean up the mess and get them out of their rut and get them out of their trouble. And I feel like friendships like that never work long term because you will end up depleted. You always end up feeling like the girl who gave too much, cared too much, and was too heavily invested. And then it starts to feel like, dang, well, what do I get from this friendship? Like I always do audits of the friendships I have to make sure that it's reciprocal and to make sure that I'm never overgiving or overstepping. Because the last thing I want to do is feel like a resource in someone's life when I am much more than that, and unfortunately male-centered women, because they're so focused on the man that they're with and pleasing him and being on his good side and staying on his good side, making sure he has everything he needs and all his needs are met emotionally, financially, and physically, she will always leave you feeling like you're not worthy of decency because she's too busy giving her everything to a toxic man that she's going to call you about, crying about in 3 to 5 business days. You are left with a one-sided friendship where you are just constantly trying to save this damsel, constantly try to give her good advice and help her through things and try to teach her that she has value and try to help her view herself as valuable. Like you literally begin to pour into this bottomless pit. And then the danger in that is you become an empty vessel and you become an empty cup. And you start to realize, wow, you only view me as, someone who can give you advice. You only view me as a therapist. You only view me as a babysitter, a shoulder to cry on, someone who you can get your emotions off on, but not someone who deserves that same thing in return. It's almost like you are just supposed to be a one-sided resource to them. Meanwhile, they don't have to give anything back to you in return. And what happens is you start to resent that person. I don't care if this is a friend, this could be a cousin, a sister, a mother, whoever. Any woman in your life, I'm sure a lot of you can think of someone like this in your life or someone who was in your life like this, who used you for, your emotional intelligence and for just your advice and your nurturing side and your caring nature, right? You start to feel really depleted and you feel like, what am I getting from this? And then before you know it, you have animosity toward this person, not because you wanted to, but because they forced your hand. They never nurtured the friendship. They just nurtured what you could offer them, what you could give them that was good. See, when people are male-centered and they tend to deal with a lot of toxic men and narcissistic men, those traits from that man rub off on the woman. Absolutely. And this is why people tell women who get really wrapped up in narcissistic, abusive relationships, you attract what you are, because something about you, whether it was your light or, something you carried, attracted the man, but it was your job to get him off of you once you realized that he wasn't who he says he was. So if you stick around and you enjoy the toxicity and you enjoy the back and forth, on again, off again, something about it makes you feel like, it's exciting, or it gives you a rush, or maybe deep down you haven't done the work to realize that, this is not healthy and you have subconsciously just accepted this relationship as your normal. You don't realize how harmful you are to the people around you, and you become similar to this man. You take on his abusive traits. You take on his neglectful traits. You take on selfishness. Because you're dealing with a selfish person, you become selfish with your friends, with your family. People like that become very selfish with their friends and family and the people around them who really care about them. And it's sad because this person is not like the narcissist, but they begin to show up as them because they're being depleted in their own relationship with that person. So it's just a nasty, vicious loop that they're stuck in of depleting the person that cares about them, giving everything to the person that doesn't care about them, and then coming back empty to the person who gave them everything. I've dealt with this constantly with a close family friend of mine. I'm not gonna lie, it's been exhausting. It got to a point where I had to really pull back and reevaluate the friendship, and I know she felt it. I know she felt the change in energy, but I feel like she kind of accepted it because she knew that she wasn't being a good friend to me. A lot of times too, she would say a lot of slick and sly things. Like, she started to get very passive aggressive, and she started to do a lot of weird, humbling things that, again, were coming from her frustration and her lack of happiness from the man that was being abusive and toxic to her. So it's not something that I'm willing to sign up for. It's not something that I'm willing to sit there and deal with long term. And I think once you notice the warning signs, which is, she's taking on negative, nasty traits from the guy that she's dealing with, very male-centered of her, because you don't have your own legs to stand on. You don't have a backbone. You're literally adopting toxic traits right under your nose, like without you even noticing it. And that's disgusting. You also see red flags in, just the types of things that they're willing to do for other people who are bad to them or who are no good for them. But then the lack of things that they're willing to do for you, who, is a genuine friend, a genuine family member, someone who cares about them deeply. It's unfortunate when you realize it, but it's great also at the same time, because then you realize, wow, like, I don't have to be available for you as much as I was before. I'm going to make myself scarce. I'm going to make my resources scarce since you're using me as one. So ladies, drop down in the comment section. Let me know your thoughts on friends and male-centered women who use you as resources or who have used you as resources. Let me know how you've combated these issues down below. I'd love to hear your stories. I'll also be leaving my email in the description box so you can share your stories with me there as well. Have a lovely day, ladies.